How do you manage, again, that low overhead while seeking for that North Star?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we kind of discovered it along the way, right? There's a lot of, let me step back. A lot of what we do is staffing contracts. We do a lot of really cool things, but at the heart and core of what Clearridge does to function is win contracts and staff them, recruit and staff, right? If you go to our website, there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're doing and a lot of cool stuff we don't list on there. But
all right, welcome back to another episode of Why Y'all Working. I'm one of your hosts, Alairé, Jameson.
I'm Michael Ogunsanya.
And we have a very special guest from the GovCon sector here with us today, a very successful entrepreneur by the name of Jeff Bullock. He is the founder and CEO of Clearridge Defense. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Appreciate it. We'd love to start out with our first question. Why do you work? What does it mean to you?
Why do I work? Well, first you got to live, right? I guess it started out, I just wanted to be successful. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and the job for me was always never just to bring money in. It was really, I wanted to feel accomplished. I wanted to get somewhere and to rise above the ranks. And so that was motivating for me, right? That was what made me want to work hard in school to get the best grades, to get the best, entrance to a college. I chose the degree in the school I went to because they had the best career placement across any of the places I applied to, and that meant a lot to me.
Nice. All right. Appreciate that. Thank you. So with that being said, can we start with your background from college? I guess, if that's where you kind of got found your purpose really for what you wanted to do in life. Can you tell us a little bit about your lifestyle, what you were doing back then? What kind of put you in this direction towards kind of getting into cybersecurity, understanding what that is, going to Penn State? Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm actually going to start a little bit before that because it makes sense for the story. I got into web design as a kid. My cousin built a Zelda website for me, and I was really into Legend of Zelda. And I bugged him a lot to maintain it for me. And I think he got annoyed. So I went out and bought a book on HTML. And then I learned about building websites. And then at that age, I started to build what grew to be actually a pretty popular Zelda website. That's another story. But then I got into making websites for local businesses up in Carroll County, Maryland, where I grew up. And after about 5 or 6 years, I was maintaining 12, 15 websites, hosting them, reselling the hosting, maintaining their website for an annual fee, and wanted to go to college for web design, right? Went to Penn State. Then I learned about database administration, and I heard the dollar signs, and I'm like, oh, I can do that and make twice as much. I think I could get into this database thing. And then I took at Penn State, they had a IST, math for IST, which was my major, information science and technology. And we learned about cryptography, right? And so they had someone come in and talk about this National Security Agency scholarship program. And I'm like, oh, I could apply for that. I'm from Maryland. That's a lot of my family that works for the Fort Meade, Maryland community. I'll apply for it. Well, I got it. I got accepted for it. And I got basically a full ride for my junior and senior year. And in return, I owed an internship and 2 years of government service to an organization called SPAWAR, Space and Naval Warfare Command, with the Navy as a civilian. Didn't know what that meant, what it was. I just knew I had a job and I knew I had a scholarship, which was great. I didn't have to worry about looking for a job post-graduation, which took a lot of stress off of my last 2 years of school. And so that kind of got me into Navy cyber right when I graduated in 2009. That was right before the Navy's Fleet Cyber Command had stood up, and United States Cyber Command just before that. And so it was really an interesting timing for me, walking into something that I didn't even know was about to happen in terms of timing. So that's kind of what led me from web design to databases to cybersecurity.
Nice. And did that all happen? We don't want to date you here. Don't want to say your age, but was it around that period of economic downturn? Whether it was the '08 crisis or 2000s .com bomb, did that affect your pursuit for a higher career in IT and tech?
Yeah, great question. So that was 15 years ago or now so, and I don't feel like it did. Cybersecurity was blowing up. There were world events happening, and cyber commands, in fact, came up out of other organizations in the DoD where they said, no crap, we need this organization that eventually grew to be a combatant command. Cybercom was just growing. Fort Meade, Maryland was growing some 3,000 jobs, and that's not 3,000 people, that's 3,000 families coming into the area. And so it was kind of the opposite for that specific field. I was very fortunate in that sense.
Wow. And just thinking of that time, that was a year post this, economic downturn. What we saw was that the private and public sector, specifically in government, saw a need to improve their cybersecurity. And we just saw again, in the United States, what was it? Every American's social security sensitive data was leaked all through someone that just wanted to bribe the government. So sometimes you can wonder, when there's times of economic instability, is there a need to beef up our national security?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think it's going to change. And I think, so when I talk about our company, I'll get into that later in the session, that we do both sides, right? We do the defensive, the cybersecurity side, and we dabble in the offensive side for good purposes. But I don't think it's going anywhere. With the way you look at Russia, Ukraine, look at Indo-PACOM region stepping up, I don't think there's going to be a war without cyber warfare going forward, and cybersecurity is a critical part of that.
Interesting.
No, for sure. And I appreciate that. So speaking about cybersecurity and cyber warfare, what does your day-to-day really look like? Are you out here battling, the hackers and the ethical non-bad guys of the world? Or are you, on the front lines kind of working with the warfighter and doing the thing? Tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
Sure. I'll probably sound non-technical if I don't start from earlier on. So when I was a civilian with the Navy, I did a little bit of red teaming, more for educational purposes and for recruiting. In the Navy, we did a lot of sponsoring of collegiate cyber defense competitions, had a lot of fun, went out and red team, to recruit. But I got thrown into a role as an IPT lead, integrated product team lead, where I oversaw a lot of really strong engineers, operators, developers. And my favorite part of my job was finding work for them to do so that they didn't have to worry about what their next project was, which is weird for a government organization, but SPAWAR is a working capital funded organization, which means they basically need another government organization to send them money for us to send them people and contractors to do work. And so as a civilian IPT lead, I was constantly finding work for, if you can imagine a bunch of engineers that are maybe introverted, that's not what they want to do. They just want to be buried in the code, and they love that. And that's fine. We need that. And I always enjoyed bringing them work. So that's what made me want to start Clearridge. And so when we started at Clearridge, it was just me until you came on Alairé, and eventually my business partner and the rest of the team. I was on contract myself. I was a cyber systems engineer. We helped build out some flyaway kits for the Marine Corps cyber protection teams. We did a lot of systems engineering for future cyberspace capabilities, and I love that. But I would be doing a disservice to the company if I didn't also try and grow it at the same time. And life's a little different right now. We're on just under 100 employees. And so my day-to-day is remote. I work from home. I make sure that we are always looking at growing and winning more contracts so that we always have opportunities for our employees. We do have people that leave Clearridge Defense from time to time, and they leave because they don't want to work in Fort Meade and they want to move to Florida or Texas or you name it, or we're not on the contracts that they want to work on. So that tells me we need to win more contracts. So I'm trying to, as much as I enjoy doing the work on keyboard myself, I'm trying to do a better job delegating and backfilling those roles so that I can focus on strategic growth.
And so that day-to-day, daily stand-up, you're doing backlog refinement, or are you, like you said, away from the keyboard and away from that sprint process? Do you run Agile or Scrum?
Not myself personally in my day-to-day. I do a daily Scrum stand-up with our executive team, and we kind of talk through what we're working through, what are our blockers, and we get through that. It's usually all virtual, sometimes text only, in Teams. A lot of Microsoft Teams. I live on Teams more than I do text or phone. I do make it a point to get down. I live up in Carroll County, about 45 minutes north of Fort Meade, Maryland, and I make it a point to get down that way at least twice a week to visit with team members, walk around, see everyone that's on contract as much as I can, meet with our customers and clients. And sometimes that's just going from building to building. Sometimes there's onboarding meetings. We'll go to Clearridge Defense headquarters over at UMBC, and we'll onboard team members. As much as I can, I love to participate in monthly in-progress reviews with our customers for all of our subcontracts. If it's not me and it's one of our other contract leads, we always tell each other we need to be the best sub to the prime contract partners that we have. And so helping them make sure that we're doing that successfully, working with our recruiters to understand and prioritize what are our top priority openings that our customers need us to staff, and also at the same time trying to forecast new opportunities that are 12, 18 months down the road that we want to pursue, if not as a prime contractor, as a subcontractor.
No, that's really dope. And I appreciate you mentioning kind of I guess, transition from being an employee in the business, working in the business, to working on the business, right? I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have to find a way to make that transition if they really want to scale. And that's really what you've kind of done with Clearidge now, looking at more prime contracts and trying to bring on more folks. So can you tell us a little bit about what your mindset was during that time and how you were able to kind of flip your perspective on, okay, well, I do like being behind, the keyboard, to, hey, I like actually marketing and taking care of people and helping people actually find the work that they love to do and creating a space for them to do that. So talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, so that was tough. I had plenty of mentors in this industry. There's so many folks willing to help, and I'm happy to do the same. There's so much work going around for small businesses that everyone's willing to help each other, and I'm very thankful for that. In government contracting, in Central Maryland at least, I can speak to that. But I had mentors that said, hey, if you're going to do this whole government contracting thing, once you've got your 10 employees on board and they're on contract, that's a good time to back off contract full time and focus on growing the company. I did not do that, nor did my partner. We stayed fully billable on contract till almost a year ago, and still to some extent we're still supporting those contracts. Why did we do that? That was a business model decision we made. It doesn't work for everybody, but until we were more than 50 employees, we were still fully on contract. And so what that does is that lowers our overhead. Right now, we don't have a fancy building with a fountain in front of it. We paid at the time $330 a month at UMBC for a mailbox in a hub zone, and all the other work was done remotely. My time was fully billable. I'd work nights and weekends on proposals and things like that, but most of my time was on contract. And so, yeah, it drove me insane and my family insane, and we made that sacrifice. But as a result, we had a low overhead business model that allowed us to pay employees more and charge the government less than the prime partners we supported. We could recruit anyone. There was no stopping it. And that overhead was so low, we still had great rates. And that's again, I feel that's what led to our first prime contracts. We could bid a great price and still find great talent because we weren't skimming off the top. So to answer your question, that was very difficult for me. We said we wanted a prime for years before we actually did. We finally did. And I think that was a forcing function to remove me from contract so that we could focus deliberately on strategic growth. But it wasn't until 50 plus employees, and that was 7 years into the company.
Nice. And I'm sure you've been in a lot of rooms, Jeff, like networking with a lot of business owners in the defense contracting space. How do you manage a low overhead? I know you spoke through it, but do you notice, some crazy purchases? I know, again, in this space, they spend a lot to hire. You want to recruit the top talent. That's one of the most important things. How do you manage, again, that low overhead while seeking for that North Star?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we kind of discovered it along the way, right? There's a lot of, let me step back. A lot of what we do is staffing contracts. We do a lot of really cool things, but at the heart and core of what Clearidge does to function is win contracts and staff them, recruit and staff, right? If you go to our website, there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're doing and a lot of cool stuff we don't list on there. But what makes this company function and what allows us to invoice to pay people is the staffing process. So to boil it down to as simple as it can be. So how do we find talent, right? We have all these openings and we need to find people. The easiest answer is you go to a sourcing organization or a recruitment firm and you ask for help. What will they tell you? They'll say, hey, here's a person, name redacted. Here's their resume. Could you use them? Great. If you can, we want you to pay us 20% of their first year's salary. If they leave within 3 months, we'll give you your money back. Okay, well, our low overhead business model, we're maxing out people's salaries and we may only have 3 or 5% profit on that person. In some cases more, in weird instances. If we say we even have 5% profit on someone and they leave and they stay 4 years. They stay 4 years, that's 20% I could pay for what I paid that recruiter. If that person leaves in anything less than 4 years, we've lost money. And we're a business, not a charity, but we want to make strategic investments in people. But that paying recruiters to a direct hire placement fee of 20% or something similar does not work for our business model. It does for other companies where they don't have that problem, where they're paying people much less and they're taking a lot off the top. That's a lot of buffer that they can use to pay a recruitment firm. We did not choose to go that route. So something an employee actually came up with, I want to say in 2017, 2018, what led to our most successful thing was our referral program. Basically, if a current employee refers another employee, for every month that person stays on board, they receive, the referrer receives $250 a month. So if you refer 5 people that work for Clear, you're making an extra 15 grand a year. And there's no limit to the number of referrals, and there's no limit to how many years that person stays on. More than half of our company are referrals. But that's money that we save in not having to pay recruiters. We can advertise that as an additional revenue stream that we're putting in our employees' pockets, in addition to all the other revenue streams we give them and bonuses and all that fun stuff. So I feel like the referral program and that word of mouth led to people wanting, our company and our culture wanting to hire like-minded people. And Alairé, say you're working for Clear Ridge and you refer Michael, and Michael's considering taking another opportunity. You're probably going to try and convince Michael to stay because you want your referral fee and because he's your buddy. Right. So it's not a pyramid scheme by any means, but it's a great way to bring everybody together with like-minded people that they've worked with in the past that they would recommend.
I love that. Alairé?
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning that, Jeff, because even when I was there, and I know that seeing the beginnings of that referral program kind of work itself out, and then to see it kind of blossom into what it is today is like really awesome to hear that. So, congrats to the team and you for being able to kind of pull that off, but also being able to find that kind of gem that really brought the revenue to your organization by way of the people and the brand that you were able to build. So that's great. And then wanted to talk a little bit about, kind of what could you tell us about some life stories, experiences that you've had so far that kind of brought you to this point that you would but that you would want to, that are worth mentioning. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Gosh, great question. I guess the entrepreneurial piece is important, right? Not everybody wants this. Some people work for family. Some people work for the self-gratification. Some people have some high they got to hit, right? For me, I knew I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted it to be successful. Another part I would say is when we started the company, it was so my fiance moved to Maryland in, I want to say 2013, and we got married in 2015. 4 months after we started the company. So it was a kind of a crazy year. A year later, we bought a house. So there was a lot going on, a lot of life stressors. I had my comfy GS-13 job with the government, and it was great. I loved it. I had no reason to really want to leave SPAWAR, but I had it set in my head. This is something I wanted to try. My business partner now at the time was a mentor 5 years prior and had a company, had tried to recruit me. And I thought, man, I think I could do that. I think I could figure out how to do that. And so he became a mentor to me. I made a Microsoft project file, worked 5 years backwards, and it got to be 6 months out. And I had the conversation with my wife, Katie, my fiance at the time, and said, hey, are we going to do this? And she's like, we don't have kids yet. Now's the chance if we want to put the time in. And I was very thankful. She came from a family of her father was an entrepreneur. Her family did very well, actually had a staffing company out in the Midwest, very successful. And so she grew up in that, and she knew the return if you put in the time, but also what it takes to do that. And I don't think we would have been as successful if she didn't kind of convince me there to be like, no, if we're going to try it, let's do it now. And so I'm glad we did that. I think if we did it if we had kids or at a later point in life, I'm not saying we wouldn't have been successful. It just would have been a lot harder. I could work nights and weekends and not be taking myself away from family and things like that. And so I guess something I'd offer to any entrepreneur out there is whoever your partner is in life or may be, they got to be fully in on it. And if they're not, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a lot harder. Consider that, whether that's a business partner or a significant other. You're marrying all of them. If they're not in on it, then it's gonna pull you down.
That's great. And I think that, marrying the right one or having the right business partner alongside you at the right time in the right place, right? It makes a lot of things easier, as you've mentioned. I think that one thing that I did want to touch on is how were you able to manage it all? Because I know that some people say that, wives are a lot sometimes, right? But you said that your wife was able to help you. So in what ways was she able to kind of bring, what knowledge was she able to bring to the table that you didn't otherwise have in the beginning that I guess helped you amplify what you were doing with me even at the beginning?
Yeah. So first of all, she's a motivator, right? I remember coming up from the basement and saying, and she would have dinner, and we both cook. This isn't her cooking dinner thing, but she would cook dinner, and I eat food in like 5 minutes and I'd be like, Katie, we were just told by this prime partner of ours, they've got a 14-person contract. If we can find the people, we can have up to 4 people. So me and another guy, in a matter of like 6 or 7 hours, found, I want to say like 40 people and signed maybe 15 of them in a very short amount of time. Gave them to the prime and they said, you can find these people for these rates? And we said, yeah. And they said, all right, you can have 4. And we were thrilled. But it was that night that Katie's like, I got the dishes, get back down in that basement, figure it out. That motivated me. That was part of it. 2, she's the MBA. I am not. I have a BS in information science and technology. I grew up in like being business minded and helping my dad. He's got a general contracting company. I ran QuickBooks for him growing up, and it's different, but she's the MBA. When there's tough decisions and we're at the dinner table, I feel like I could have a conversation, and she's read in on everything now because she works for the company part-time, and we can have, day-to-day conversations and really tackle them. And so some of the best ideas that we press out to the company or that come from me and my partner are often coming from my wife or his wife.
No, that's great.
Special. I can relate to that. Mine stand. My fiance, even though with Yall Working, she's always been there. I mean, yeah, it was days where it wasn't easy, where, we're splitting like a townhome. So our expenses are so low, but we're still cooking dinner with whatever we could get from the store. And I'm like, okay, she's the one for me, So yeah, my partner is a huge part in the work and the things I want to achieve in life.
Solid. And I think that's a great place to wrap here for segment 1.5. Appreciate it because we were able to talk about a little bit about balancing family and building business, as well as figuring out a little bit more about you, Jeff. So appreciate it, guys. This has been a great first episode of Why Y'all Working. And we'll be right back. Thank you.